Welcome to English Practice Hub. Before we start, make sure to subscribe and turn on the notification bell so you never miss our inspiring English listening videos. In this episode, you'll improve your English while exploring one of the most important books about money, behavior, and decision-making, The Psychology of Money by Morgan Housel. This book isn't about how to get rich fast. It's about understanding why we think the way we do about money, why some people stay rich and others lose everything. It's about patience, mindset, and emotion, the real keys to financial freedom. Let's dive in and discover how your behavior matters more than your bank balance. Money means different things to different people. Morgan Housel begins his book with a simple truth: no one is crazy when it comes to money. We all make financial choices that make perfect sense to us, even if they look irrational to others. That's because every person grows up with a unique story about money, shaped by their background, culture, and experiences. Someone who lived through war or hyperinflation sees saving as safety. Someone who grew up during a market boom sees risk as opportunity. A child from a poor family values stability. A child from a wealthy one might crave excitement. These differences don't come from intelligence. They come from exposure. As Housel says, every decision people make with money makes sense to them based on what they've seen. He uses the story of Bill Gates to show how experience shapes destiny. Gates became one of the richest people in history because his high school happened to own one of the few computers in the entire world in the late 1960s. He got a head start that 99.9% of other kids didn't. But luck isn't just about opportunity. It's about where and when you were born. Housel reminds us that the world changes fast, and financial behavior that once worked can later fail. Timing matters as much as talent. The author also compares Gates's story with that of Kent Evans, Gates's close friend. Evans was equally smart, equally driven, and shared the same dream of starting a computer company. But he died in a climbing accident before adulthood. One lived to change the world. The other never got the chance. This isn't about effort or worthiness. It's about randomness. Luck and risk are two sides of the same coin. Because of this, Housel warns against judging other people's financial choices. The young crypto investor, the cautious saver, the gambler, the minimalist, they are all reacting to their own emotional memories. Calling them crazy ignores their history. Instead of asking, why are they doing that? Ask, what have they experienced that I haven't? Understanding this question is the first step toward wisdom. The second step is humility. Even the smartest people are blind to the role luck plays in their success. We love to believe that our achievements come from skill, but luck often hides behind confidence. At the same time, people who fail aren't always foolish. Sometimes they just faced bad timing or bad breaks. Seeing that difference helps you stay grounded and kinder to others. Finally, Housel emphasizes that financial behavior isn't about spreadsheets or logic. It's about stories, the ones we tell ourselves to feel safe, successful, or free. Some people spend to show status. Others save to feel secure. Some take risks to escape boredom. Others avoid them to escape fear. Every decision carries emotion, not just numbers. He ends the chapter with a powerful reminder. Your personal experiences make up maybe 0.000000001% of what's happened in the world, but they make up 80% of how you think the world works. That's why nobody is truly rational with money, only reasonable in their own context. So the first lesson of The Psychology of Money is this: don't assume you understand someone else's financial choices. Don't copy what others are doing. And don't judge success or failure by a single story. Everyone is playing a different game, using different rules, shaped by different lives. In money and in life, outcomes are never fully under your control. Two invisible forces shape everything: luck and risk. Morgan Housel explains that understanding these forces is the difference between arrogance and wisdom. Luck is when things go better than they should. Risk is when things go worse than they deserve. The two are impossible to separate. We like to think success comes from skill, but it's often luck dressed up as talent. And failure is often bad luck disguised as bad judgment. Housel returns to Bill Gates' story. Gates admits that he was incredibly lucky. His school was one of only a few in the world that had a computer in 1968. That opportunity changed his life. But there's another name most people don't know, Kent Evans, Gates' closest friend and business partner in high school. Kent was equally brilliant and motivated. He might have built Microsoft with Gates, but he died in a climbing accident before he had the chance. One twist of fate made Gates a billionaire and left Evans forgotten. That's what Housel means by the twin nature of luck and risk. Every outcome could have gone another way. You can do everything right and still fail. You can make huge mistakes and still get lucky. Recognizing that truth keeps your ego in check. The author warns against idolizing successful people too blindly. When we see someone rich, we assume we can copy their path. But that's dangerous. Maybe their risk worked once and won't work again. Maybe their story includes hidden luck. Instead of trying to mimic outcomes, study the principles. Ask what made their approach survivable, not just profitable. He introduces one of the most important rules of money. The most important part of getting rich is staying rich. Survival matters more than brilliance. Many people make a fortune and lose it because they can't manage risk or control greed. The game is not to win once, it's to stay in the game long enough for compound growth to work. Housel explains that investors often fall because they misunderstand probabilities. You don't need to be right all the time. You just need to avoid catastrophe. He calls this the survival mindset. Successful investors like Warren Buffett didn't win because of one genius move. They won because they avoided fatal mistakes and let time multiply their returns. He uses a metaphor. Imagine crossing a busy street. Even if the odds of getting hit are just 1%, would you cross it 100 times a day? Probably not, because one bad outcome could end everything. In money, it's the same. Avoid taking risks that could wipe you out completely. Another lesson in this chapter is emotional balance. People who stay calm during market chaos usually outperform those who panic. The market rewards patience, not speed. Housel reminds us that temperament beats intelligence. You don't need a PhD in finance to grow wealth. You just need to stay rational when others lose control. He writes, luck and risk are brothers. They are both reality's way of reminding you that you're not as smart as you think you are and not as dumb as you feel when things go wrong. The goal is not to eliminate luck or risk, that's impossible, but to respect them. By the end of the chapter, Housel leaves readers with a mental model for life and investing. 1. Be humble about success. 2. Be forgiving toward failure. 3. Focus on survival above everything else. Wealth, he says, is a long game. You don't need to win every round. You just need to stay alive long enough for time and consistency to work their magic. Because in the end, the most powerful financial strategy is simple: never quit the game. Morgan Housel calls compounding the eighth wonder of the world, not because it's complicated, but because it's invisible to most people. It works slowly, then suddenly. The key to building wealth is not high intelligence or perfect timing, it's simply patience. He starts with the story of Warren Buffett, one of the richest people alive. Most people think Buffett's secret is his stock-picking genius, but Housel reveals the real reason: time. Buffett began investing at age 10 and never stopped. By his mid-60s, his net worth was around $300 million. Today, it's more than $100 billion. Nearly all of it came after he turned 60. That's the magic of compounding. Small returns repeated for a long time become huge results. Buffett's average annual return has been around 22%, which is impressive but not extreme. What's extraordinary is the duration. He's been consistent for more than 70 years. Compounding is not just about money, it's a philosophy of life. Success in anything: health, learning, relationships, grows the same way. Tiny improvements done consistently outperform big efforts done rarely. Housel says, good investing is not about earning the highest returns. It's about earning pretty good returns for the longest period of time possible. That means the most important skill in finance isn't forecasting or analysis, it's endurance. But endurance is hard because humans crave quick results. The modern world teaches us to chase fast rewards. The stock market doesn't. Compounding punishes impatience and rewards those who wait. The author compares compounding to a tree growing silently in the dark. For years, you see little progress. Then one day, it's huge. The growth was happening all along, you just couldn't see it. Wealth works the same way. You plant seeds of saving and discipline, and the results explode only after time and consistency. He warns against interrupting compounding by constantly changing plans. The biggest danger isn't poor returns, it's breaking the chain. People panic during short-term downturns, sell their investments and restart later. Each reset kills the effect of time. The secret is to stay invested through boredom, fear, and temptation. Another insight: compounding doesn't require perfection. You can make mistakes, miss opportunities, even lose money occasionally, as long as you stay in the game. Buffett himself admits he's made countless errors, but his biggest strength is that he never stopped compounding. Housel writes, time is the most powerful force in investing. It makes little things grow big and big mistakes fade away. This is why he argues that patience is underrated and intelligence is overrated. He also discusses the psychological side of patience. Humans are emotional. We get excited when things rise and afraid when they fall. But compounding requires emotional neutrality, an ability to do nothing, even when everything inside you wants to act. The author calls this the discipline of boredom. Successful investors can sit still. They understand that wealth grows quietly. Noise and movement belong to those chasing luck, not to those building something permanent. Finally, Housel connects compounding to personal freedom. Money that grows quietly in the background gives you independence. It buys time, security, and choice. And that's the point of wealth: not to impress, but to liberate. He concludes with one of the book's most memorable lines. Compounding doesn't rely on intelligence, it relies on time. And time can't be bought, you have to respect it. The takeaway is simple: small habits repeated for decades beat big moves done once. Don't aim for fast growth, aim for uninterrupted growth. Because the secret to wealth and to life is that slow is smooth, and smooth becomes unstoppable. Making money and keeping money are two very different skills. Most people focus on the first one and forget the second. In The Psychology of Money, Morgan Housel explains that getting wealthy requires risk-taking, optimism, and bold moves, while staying wealthy requires humility, fear, and caution. Both are necessary, but they often conflict with each other. To get rich, you must believe in the future. You must invest, build, create, and take chances. But once you've succeeded, those same traits can destroy you. If you keep chasing growth without protecting what you've built, you'll lose it. That's why the truly successful balance confidence with paranoia. Housel writes, you need a barbell personality, optimistic about the long term, but paranoid about what could go wrong in the short term. It means believing the world will get better over time, but knowing that disasters can happen anytime. He uses the example of Warren Buffett again. Buffett is famous not because he never takes risks, but because he takes survivable risks. He avoids bets that could wipe him out. He doesn't use debt, doesn't overextend, and never assumes the future will look exactly like the past. That's how he stayed rich for so long, by not dying financially. Housel explains that staying wealthy means focusing less on growth and more on endurance. To survive, you must respect three ideas. Luck and risk will always exist. Nothing is guaranteed to last. Your emotions are your biggest threat. He calls this mindset financial humility. the ability to say, I don't know, and plan accordingly. Most financial failures happen not because people make bad investments, but because they refuse to prepare for surprises. They think they're smarter than uncertainty. The author gives a warning from history. During every major financial crisis, the Great Depression, the dot-com bubble, the 2008 meltdown, the same pattern appeared. People took huge risks after a period of success. They believed this time is different, but it never is. Success makes people forget the role of luck, and forgetfulness invites collapse. That's why Housel argues that wealth preservation requires a healthy level of fear. Not panic, just respect for what could go wrong. He calls it reasonable pessimism. The goal is not to avoid all risk, but to avoid ruin. He introduces the room for error concept. Smart investors leave a margin of safety in every decision. They don't assume perfect timing, perfect health, or perfect luck. They know that life will eventually test them, so they plan for flexibility. As Housel says, the biggest single point of failure in investing is assuming you'll be forced to play only once. He also connects this lesson to behavior. Some people can't stop taking risks even after they've won. They think success means invincibility. But the most powerful move in money and in life is knowing when to stop. You don't have to double your wealth every year. You have to keep it. The difference between rich and wealthy becomes clear here. Rich is a moment. Wealthy is a mindset. Wealthy people understand that losing money hurts more than gaining the same amount feels good. That's why they protect what they have. They care less about maximizing returns and more about ensuring survival. Housel summarizes it beautifully. Getting money is one thing. Keeping it requires the opposite: humility, fear, and acceptance that you can be wrong. In other words, wealth isn't about being right. It's about staying alive long enough for your right decisions to matter. He ends this section by reminding us that the hardest financial skill is getting out of your own way. You don't need to predict the future. You just need to avoid the mistakes that can end your journey. So if you want to stay wealthy, don't ask, how can I earn more? Ask, how can I survive anything? In this part, Morgan Housel shifts from numbers to meaning. He says the greatest form of wealth is not money itself, it's freedom. Freedom to do what you want when you want, with whom you want, for as long as you want. That's real wealth. Housel writes, controlling your time is the highest dividend money pays. You don't need a mansion or a yacht to feel rich. You need mornings that belong to you, not to an alarm clock. You need days that you can shape, not days shaped by someone else's schedule. But here's the paradox. People spend most of their time chasing money and status, only to lose the freedom they wanted in the first place. They take jobs they hate, buy things they don't need, and lock themselves into lifestyles that demand constant income. Instead of owning their time, they rent it out again and again. That's why Housel introduces one of the book's most important concepts: enough. Enough doesn't mean giving up ambition. It means recognizing the point where more money adds nothing but stress. He shares the story of Rajat Gupta, a billionaire and former head of McKinsey who went to prison for insider trading. Gupta already had more money than he could spend in a lifetime, but he wanted more, specifically status and belonging among other billionaires. His greed cost him everything. Housel writes, the hardest financial skill is getting the goalpost to stop moving. Every time you reach a new level of wealth, it's tempting to push for the next. But that endless race never ends in satisfaction. Someone will always have more. To escape that trap, you have to define your personal version of enough. Maybe it's the ability to take a month off work. Maybe it's being debt-free. Maybe it's working because you want to, not because you must. Housel explains that people who know they're enough are the calmest in chaos. They're not chasing trends, competing for status, or comparing net worths. They've already won because they're free from needing more. Another form of freedom, he says, is emotional independence. Many people let other people's opinions dictate their financial decisions: what car to buy, what job to take, what house to live in. But real wealth means being free from that pressure. You make choices that align with your values, not society's expectations. He connects this idea to happiness. Studies show that after a certain point, more income doesn't increase life satisfaction. Once basic needs and comfort are met, extra money buys very little happiness. What matters more is autonomy, the ability to choose. Housel gives a formula. Wealth equals money plus time plus control. If you have all three, you're rich in the deepest sense. If you have money but no control over your life, you're not wealthy, you're trapped in golden handcuffs. He reminds readers that freedom doesn't come automatically with success. It must be protected deliberately. That means saying no to some opportunities, avoiding unnecessary debt, and resisting the urge to compare. It means recognizing that your definition of enough is personal, not a competition. Housel concludes this section with a lesson that echoes through the entire book. There is no reason to risk what you have and need for what you don't have and don't need. That one sentence sums up the core philosophy of the psychology of money. Money is a tool for freedom, not for endless accumulation. He leaves us with a challenge. When you think about wealth, don't ask, "How can I get more?" Ask instead, "What would make me feel free?" Because the real victory in money is not having everything. It's wanting less and being at peace with enough. Morgan Housel reminds us that money doesn't just test intelligence, it tests character. You can know everything about finance and still fail if you can't control your ego, emotions, and impulses. Because in the end, your behavior will always matter more than your knowledge. He starts by explaining the illusion of control. People love to believe they can predict the future, the market, the economy, the perfect investment. But nobody can. Even the best investors admit they're wrong half the time. Yet ordinary people continue to make confident predictions because certainty feels safer than doubt. Housel argues that humility is the foundation of financial success. When you accept uncertainty, you stop overreacting. You stop chasing perfect timing. You start planning for mistakes instead of pretending they'll never happen. He writes, "You can be wrong half the time and still make a fortune if you let your good ideas compound and your bad ones fade quietly." That's why ego is so dangerous. It won't let you admit when you're wrong. The moment you start believing you're smarter than the market teaches you a lesson. Housel connects this to human psychology. People don't want to be rich, they want to feel superior. The goal quietly shifts from freedom to comparison. We start measuring our lives not by what we have, but by what others have. The problem is, comparison has no finish line. He uses a simple example. A person earning $100,000 a year feels rich until they meet someone making $200,000. The comparison never ends because there's always someone ahead. That's why Housel says, the fastest way to feel poor is to compare yourself to richer people. True financial peace comes when you stop competing with others and start aligning your money with your values. It's not about winning the race, it's about leaving the race altogether. Another major theme in this chapter is the danger of greed. Most financial disasters, scams, frauds, collapses start with someone who couldn't say enough. Ego whispers, "Just a little more," and logic disappears. Housel refers to the story of Bernie Madoff, the man behind the biggest Ponzi scheme in history. Madoff could have stopped early and lived comfortably. Instead, his pride demanded more power, more admiration, more illusion of control. It destroyed him. To avoid that trap, Housel recommends cultivating emotional distance from money. View it as a tool, not as your identity. When you tie your self-worth to your wealth, every loss feels like a personal failure. But when you see money as a servant, not a master, you stay calm. He also explains that successful investing isn't about being fearless. It's about managing fear. Everyone feels anxiety when markets drop or when others seem to be doing better. The difference is discipline, the ability to stick to a long-term plan when emotions scream for short-term action. He calls this behavioral intelligence. It means staying rational when others panic, patient when others rush, and humble when others brag. It's about recognizing that the goal is not to predict the future but to survive it. Housel summarizes it in one line: financial success is not a hard science. It's a soft skill, where how you behave is more important than what you know. Finally, he returns to the illusion of control. The more you try to control outcomes, the more anxious you become. Real control comes from flexibility, the ability to adapt when life changes. Don't try to eliminate uncertainty. Prepare for it. He ends the section with one of the book's most profound ideas. Wealth is what you don't see, and calmness is its greatest expression. You don't show power by predicting the future. You show it by staying composed no matter what happens. So control your ego, respect randomness, plan for mistakes. Because in the long run, the calm investor always beats the clever one. We've reached the final part of the psychology of money, the place where all the lessons come together. Morgan Housel doesn't just teach how to make money, he teaches how to think about it. The book ends with a message that feels simple but timeless. How you behave matters more than how much you know. He summarizes the key principles of financial wisdom, lessons that apply not only to money, but to life itself. First, respect luck and risk. Success and failure are never fully earned. Some of it is you, and some of it is timing. So stay humble in victory and compassionate in loss. Second, know your game. Everyone, playing a different version of the money game. Traders want short-term excitement. Savers want long-term peace. Entrepreneurs want independence. Don't copy someone else's strategy if you're not living their life. Third, the power of compounding works best when uninterrupted. Time beats timing. The most successful people are those who let patience do the heavy lifting. Fourth, saving is more powerful than income. You can't control the market, but you can control your expenses. Wealth is what you don't see, the quiet money that stays put and works for you. Fifth, freedom beats luxury. Use money to control your time, not to impress others. You can't be truly rich if your schedule belongs to someone else. Sixth, enough is the secret to peace. Define your own finish line and stop moving it. Happiness begins where comparison ends. Seventh, optimism and fear can coexist. Be confident about the long term but cautious about the short term. The world will break sometimes. A plan for that without losing faith in the future. Eighth, ego is your greatest enemy. The moment you think you're smarter than randomness, you've already lost. Ninth, behavior knowledge. The difference between average and exceptional investors isn't IQ, it's patience, consistency, and emotional control. And finally, true wealth is calmness. It's the ability to wake up without panic, make choices without fear, and sleep peacefully knowing you're in control of your time and emotions. Housel closes the book with a reminder that echoes throughout all 20 chapters. Money's greatest value is that it gives you control over your time. Use it to live a life that makes sense to you, not to anyone else. That's the essence of the psychology of money. Wealth isn't measured in numbers, but in freedom, peace, and purpose. You've just finished The Psychology of Money by Morgan Housel, one of the most practical and thought-provoking books about behavior, finance, and life. If you enjoyed learning through this listening summary, imagine what you can gain by practicing every week. So before you go, make sure to subscribe to English Practice Hub. Here, you'll improve your English while exploring ideas that actually change how you think. Every week, we break down inspiring books, motivational stories, and real-life lessons in clear, natural English. So hit that subscribe button, turn on the notification bell, and stay tuned. Because in the next episode, we'll uncover another book that can change your mindset and your English at the same time. Until then, remember, be patient with your money, kind with yourself, and calm in your decisions. Thanks for listening. This is English Practice Hub, where learning English also means learning life.